Welcome to episode 3 of Between Sundays. I'm Zach Casey, the executive pastor at City Awakening Church. And today I'm joined by Savannah Alderman, our kids director, and Seth Finch, our student pastor. And we're going to be talking about social media today, so I thought it would be fun just to start off right out of the gate with a question. What is the first form of social media that you remember using, and how long ago was that?
For me, it would have been Facebook when I was in college. Yeah, because everything in college is on Facebook. Everything is.
You didn't do MySpace before that?
No, I didn't do social media growing up.
I don't know if MySpace counts, but I loved MySpace. You had like a top 10, top 8 friends. It was horrible. It was not a great thing, but that was definitely, I feel like that was really social media's start was MySpace, would you say?
I think, yeah, I used MySpace a little bit. I did have an account. I don't remember using it much, but it depends on, I guess, what we consider social media, which we'll touch on in just a second, but maybe even before that, AOL Instant Messenger.
Oh, I did love AOL.
So
I was like middle school. I would say high school was really AOL Instant Messenger.
Oh, yeah, high school, AOL Instant Messenger. That's actually a funny story. That's how I asked Brittany out on our first date, was through AOL Instant Messenger.
What?
So,
well, Seth's a little
I'm a little
baby.
younger,
He's a little young.
yeah, he's young. So that would have been 20 plus years ago for me, for sure.
I'll be honest, I've never heard of AOL Instant Messenger.
Actually, no, the AOL, I think they're finally like shutting down that business. I don't know if you remember ever getting them CDs in the mail all the time for AOL, dial-up internet, but yeah, that was the thing.
I guess so. I guess MySpace would have been really like high school for me. So that was 2006. I was a freshman. So yeah, 20 years ago. That's when I was a freshman in high school. Then I remember Facebook. I remember hearing about it when I was in high school, and a friend in college. It was really designed for college kids initially.
That was actually, I think I remember it coming out right after I was graduated college, or right maybe the year I was graduating. And you had to have, if I remember correctly, you had to have a .edu
yes
email address in order to sign up for Facebook initially.
Yes, I heard about it because I was a senior in high school and I had a friend in college, and she was like, "Oh yeah, there's a new thing called Facebook." And then I remember specifically, I got Instagram when I was a sophomore in college because I was working a Fuge camp, and I posted like a picture a day of like the mountains, and I was like, "Here's where I am at summer camp." So that's like, it's funny to look back at.
Yeah, it is. So why do you think that you started using social media to begin with?
Mine was for sure just because I was trying to stay connected at a new college. I didn't use it in high school or middle school or anything. All my friends had it. But it was everything in college moves through Facebook. And I guess, I don't know if it still does now, but it was every social club, every announcement, everything was running through Facebook. So it was almost like a necessity to have Facebook. And then I also had Twitter because when I was in college, I had a radio show. And so we
What?
had, yeah. So
What was it called?
Inside the Clubhouse. It was sports. Yeah.
By
And so
yourself?
like I was always tweeting sports stuff, but not it was out of that account, not my account.
That's interesting. I need to go back. Is there like recording?
Yeah, they're out there.
Is it just you, or you and a friend?
No, me. I had a couple buddies.
Seth by himself in a radio show.
It was on the FM station.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Facebook and Twitter.
Seth's famous. We didn't even know it.
Yeah.
The radio. You should
Watch
have
out.
been doing all these podcasts.
Yeah, right.
already. So yeah, what about you, Savannah? Why did you start using it?
I don't remember. I mean, I feel like when I started using it, it was just like me and all my friends did it together. I feel like at the time I was really only connected to my friends. So like with MySpace, I remember like you had like a top 8 of friends, but there was only like 40 people that you were friends with in general. It was like every kid in my class or youth group at the time. So I feel like that's why I started using it. I don't really remember the when, but in college, definitely Facebook was when we started using like groups for like, I mean, I was in a sorority, so like we had a big page. That's where we posted like, here, you can get this shirt. Here's this event. So I feel like it was definitely more of a social platform for communication in college. And I feel like when it really started to take off was when I was in college is when I really saw the boom kind of happening.
Yeah, I think it definitely wasn't like content driven. I mean,
No.
It was communication. So going back to AOL, it was a way to. The funny thing is, my home only had one phone line, and so you're still tying up the phone line. You would get a busy signal if you called, so we only had a certain amount of time we were allowed on there, but you could be chatting with multiple people at the same time.
It was,
right?
okay, Seth, since you're younger, it was literally like texting on your computer before, when you still had like 50 text messages a month you could use.
Wow.
Yeah, it was basically texting.
I feel
I
really
think-
old, and I feel like we're not that far apart in age.
I mean, I lived in the age where I only had so many text messages on my phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was definitely why I think I got it. And of course, everybody was doing it too, But and then I remember Facebook. I definitely remember people talking about that and me logging in. And the biggest thing I remember with Facebook initially was people connecting with people from the past or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that was the big thing. Like, oh, I can keep track of my friends from college or, my relatives that I don't live near, that kind of thing. Was a big driving force behind some of that, I think. But
Yeah, I will say, I feel like when I started in college, it was fun because you saw your high school friends that you don't see anymore.
Right.
Or like I was really close to my youth group. So like my youth group friends that we went to tons of different colleges. And it was, I do think that was the driving factor at 1st was like, it's all about connection and, your sweet grandmother now can comment on all these pictures she's seeing of you, which I remember was a really big thing for my grandparents. They were like, I feel like I'm going to be a part of what you're doing at college because I can see all these pictures now. So it's just funny how things have changed.
yeah, that's almost like a byproduct of it now.
Yeah.
Like that's still there, but it's not why people use it so much. You
Yeah.
know? So just for kind of a foundation, social media, a good definition is websites or applications that enable users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. So that would include things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. YouTube is a form of social media, Snapchat, TikTok, Pinterest, Reddit, and the list goes on and on. But it's anything where social networking or interaction can take place. And it's what makes social media unique or different from just like a website or even a blog or other thread, something like that, because there's not the back and forth interaction. So when you think about that, what are the dangers or problems with a digital platform for interacting and relating to others, do you think?
I think you could become disconnected from reality really quick because you can live on that platform and you can find your purpose and meaning out of what people are saying about you, how you're entertained. It can frame your mindset, because if you've watched documentaries or whatever on it, they're trying to drive you towards a certain leaning and then they're going to keep feeding you content in that way. So it's easy if you don't have guards up to kind of get stuck in your lane and not be able to see other people's perspectives. So it can be an easy slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that question immediately in my thought is comparison. I think it's especially dangerous with our kids and teens, but I think social media in general, people are posting what they want to post. So they're not just posting like their everyday, like, here's how I look when I wake up in the morning. It's here's the best picture of me and my family and this thought through process of posting a picture. And I think it easily leads to comparison of, oh, that's their life. It looks beautiful, hunky-dory, like this is amazing. When in reality, like they're posting one snapshot of their week or their month. And I think even as a mom, I can compare myself to like, man, this mom is doing so many things, going out and about. Well, she might just be posting all the things she's doing, and that's all they're doing. But I think that's so easy. I think as women too, it's a comparison thing. It's so easy to compare ourselves to what we see on social media, and I think that's a really big danger that I've seen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's the relationship side of it, which there's superficial relationships that are taking place. There's conflicts that happen on social media, reduced attention, so our ability to relate in person gets affected by our online presence. A term that I recently learned called phubbing, which is phone snubbing. Are you guys familiar with this?
Phubbing?
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, phubbing. Phubbing. So the idea is that it erodes quality time with family and friends because you're distracted by your phone. And so you're phone snubbing somebody. So there's relational effects. There's obviously mental health. I was reading some interesting information about this. Some studies showed that depressive symptoms were 27% higher, and suicidal ideation was 37% higher among adolescents who spent 3 or more hours per day on social media. 64% of teen girls, Savannah, you mentioned, reported very often feeling pressure to look perfect, strongly tied to social media usage. And so there's all the, tons of misinformation that's out there, quote unquote echo chambers, because algorithms are designed to feed us information that we want to hear or see, which leads to a distorted view of reality, which you mentioned, Seth. And then it affects society as well. Decreased productivity, cyberbullying, privacy loss, manipulation with ads. So there's lots of negatives. There are some positives that we'll talk about as well, so it's not all bad. But it was interesting reading earlier. I was reading an article, actually, that was talking about the time lost. So I just wanted to speak to this for a second because it was new kind of information to me. So the article was focusing on how we lose time using social media, but it went into, it's not just about wasting time, but it talked about the idea behind social media and time itself. So, when you're on vacation or you're doing something fun, time flies. We say time flies when you're having fun. But then when you're waiting for something, you're waiting at the airport or the doctor's office or something, time seems to crawl. And there's, I don't know all the terms, but there's scientific reasons for that. It's because when we're enjoying something, our brain is not consciously thinking of how much time is passing. But then when we look back on that event, it seems we create a lot of memories that were fun, and so it stands out in our minds. Versus we don't look back at a long period of time waiting, what seemed like that, like in a doctor's office, as a fun time because we didn't create memories. And so social media plays into that, and it, in a way, creates an illusion of time because we're constantly being hit with so much information that's designed to kind of be a shock and awe that we lose track of time because we're not thinking how long this is taking. But because it's such random information, it's not a story that's linear, we're not creating any memories. And so when we look back on it, it doesn't seem like we spent a lot of time on it either.
This is like an article you read?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And so it's really interesting. So our brains don't process the time like we do other things in life. But that's by design. So this goes back to the way casinos were designed, and actually before that, supermarket. So if you ever go to the Publix or Walmart, where's the milk and the staples that you need?
The very back of the store.
The very back of the store. That's by design, so that you have to walk past all the other things. Well, casinos picked up on that in the 70s. I forget the guy's name, but they started designing casinos this way, where they would create winding paths through the casinos, even to the restaurants and the bathrooms, so that you had to go past all this thing. Well, then they started creating them in these cubicle layouts that you were only seeing what was immediately around you, but yet you knew there was a room around the corner that you were hearing the bells go off and people win, and so you wanted to go over there. But even beyond that, they learned that not to create 90-degree turns into these rooms, because when you come to a 90-degree turn, you have to make a decision, am I going to go right or left? And you might stop and think, you know what, I just need to turn around and go out the door. So they created curvilinear lines, so you didn't really know when you were leaving one and starting the next. So you take that and it moves into social media. That's exactly what social media has done. If you remember back in the early days of Facebook or those kind of things, you could scroll and eventually you'd come to the end of the feed. And so that was like a trigger to our minds. Hey, like I've been on here for a while, I should probably stop. Now it's infinite scroll. And so we can scroll kind of like those curvilinear lines in a casino, and we lose track of time and we don't know where it's, how long we've been on there. So it's all by design. These social media companies hire, like, I forget what they're called, attention engineers, I think it is, to help, navigate this. But that also leads to FOMO, because with the difference in a casino, when you're in a casino, you're only there for the amount of time you are. But our phones are always within arm reach. And so we can always know, hey, like that cubicle effect, like there's something happening there that I'm missing out on.
Yeah.
And so that then leads to the anxiety that we talked about, which actually this article went on to go on to say, not only are we losing time and wasting it, studies are actually showing that this is aging us faster because of the anxiety, because of the effects of it, and even on the unhealthy habits that tend to come with a lot of screen time. But they were saying that these studies are suggesting that it's actually eroding our physical well-being as well and taking time away from our life. So pretty interesting.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well, when you were talking about that, my first thought too is, because I deal with this when I'm working with kids all day, is like our kids and adults alike have forgotten how to, or never learned, I guess, how to be bored. So like that's a whole attention thing too, of like, we don't have boredom these days because kids just have a screen, which that goes more into like screens and social media. But I think as an adult, I think our kids are seeing us as adults not know how to be bored because if we're sitting there, sometimes even like, I'm just thinking about like, sometimes I'll be watching TV and then I think, oh, I'm going to look at this real fast and end up picking up my phone. I literally am watching TV as I'm on social media. And me and Robbie have really caught ourselves being like, what are we doing? Like, that is ridiculous. Yeah. But I feel like that's really common these days of like, we're trying to get input however we can in whatever area we can. And it's really causing an issue of attention and across the lifespan. Right. Which, I mean, I don't even know the science behind that, but I can only imagine in a few years the science behind the lack of people knowing how to be bored is going to impact people.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll find myself when I'm watching TV, and if I hit a low point in a show or whatever I'm watching, or it's a commercial break, I pull my phone out and I'm like constantly searching for that
commercial breaks
like,
for
moment,
sure.
You know, I've had to start like putting my phone in the other room, or to break that habit because if it's there, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to look at it. I'm going to scroll.
Yep.
Well, some people say that the average attention span of a human is shorter than a goldfish. Now, like it's like less than 10 seconds, which I hate sometimes because as a church, even thinking about like marketing strategies and those kind of things, it's like you almost have to utilize that information and I don't say play into it, but keep that in mind as we're trying to communicate with people, even about something positive, because if it's too drawn out, probably like right now, like people start to lose interest, you know, if it's not quick enough. Yeah, if it's not fast. So all those are negative things. What are some of the positive effects of social media, would you say? What are some of the highlights of it?
I have a lot of friends that have created businesses through social media. Like that's how they promote their business. I feel like that's probably the one I can think is the most positive. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, that becomes like social media is not to learn about people's lives. It's more of people to promote their business. So it could be a positive and a negative. And I think communication is huge. Like I will say, like both Seth and I, like we grew up in one place and then moved down to Florida. And so it's a way I feel like for me to stay connected to the people that do still live in Tennessee. It makes me feel like I'm there even if I'm not, which I think has helped make the move easier for me. Mm-hmm. Is I can still kind of check in. I'm seeing pictures of, you know, my sister's had a baby. I'm able to see pictures of my nephew, even if she doesn't text me because it's on social media, which can be a benefit.
Yeah, I agree. The connectivity part is probably one of the biggest positives of it because, you know, people are moving around and especially since COVID, it feels like we're more and more trying to find digital ways to stay connected. And so connectivity, I have no problem promoting a business. I could see the positive effects of that, being able to get your friends. I know a friend of mine recently wrote a book promoting, you know, book on a social media platform. I get those things. Those are all good things.
Yeah. I think for me, the learning aspect of it. So, especially if you think about YouTube as a social media platform, like I go to YouTube a lot to just this weekend, I replaced the battery in an iPhone. Yeah. And so being able to go and watch that video and even some of those things where like if I'm working on my car or something and read the comments, even from an interactive standpoint and see, hey, this video is good, but here's what I learned in this process or here's what's not. So that's probably honestly the primary way that I use it now at this point in my life. I don't use it for really interaction. Maybe I'll get on every now and then and check, for the connection standpoint, but the learning part of that. And people use it for news. Again, that could be good or bad because there's a lot of bad news out there or the algorithms tend to feed what we want. But there are positives to it.
And even information. Like I think sometimes if I'm looking up like, is this restaurant open for dinner? Sometimes that's almost more accurate as social media than like a website. They don't always update their website, but usually social media, you can be like, oh yeah, they're open. They're posting about it right now. And information can go a long way too.
Yeah, for sure. So like when we talked about artificial intelligence, it's not inherently bad. Obviously there are good things to it, but there are definitely reasons to be cautious and especially as believers, things to be aware of. So I want to jump straight to some applications. Savannah, as the children's director at City Awakening, what would be your advice or even vision, maybe if we want to use that word, for how families should approach social media?
Oh, that's a big topic in my house. I will be honest. When it comes to kids ministry and you're talking babies through 5th grade, I think there should be a hard no on social media. I just think our kids don't have the executive functioning skills to really process that, the emotional regulation skills. And so the information they're taking in, there's so much growth in those ages and development in their brains for me, I'm a pretty hard no on like, that's definitely not something we should even approach before middle school. I'm even kind of a weird one about middle school. I just think our kids are growing up really fast, and I think they're losing some of their sense of ability to play because of things like screens and social media and all that. And the quicker they have access to that is the quicker they're using that as their play rather than truly playing, using their bodies, their minds, their imagination. So I don't know if that's harsh, but I'm a pretty big, like, 5th grade and under should not have any access to social media whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's harsh. I think I agree with that. And, you know even more than I do, but like we were talking about earlier, the attention, the effects that it has on their learning, their creativity, all those factors, it's hard to come up with a positive for using social media. And we're going to include in that, I'm going to include in that even YouTube shorts and those kind of things that still, they may not have the interacting piece so much socially, but the scrolling, the getting lost in time and those kind of things would be included in that.
Not just exposure to things. I just think, like, you can't always control what other people are sharing and posting. And so as much as in households you're trying to protect your children, like, immediately they start scrolling, you don't know where that's going to lead them. And so I think that's just anything that can take them from one place to another. I think, YouTube is a great example of that. I think in those younger ages, YouTube's probably the social media parents are allowing quicker than, like, obviously Instagram, Facebook, and stuff like that. But if that allows them to scroll and click and move and you don't know what's popping up, that immediately becomes dangerous. Yeah. I think in our homes.
The modern term is brain rot.
Yes.
It's brain rot. My kids the other day were showing me a video of this gummy rat and this person playing with this gummy rat and essentially dissecting it in this really weird voice. And I watched it, and at the end I was like, what did I just watch? I don't even know. It was funny, but it was also disturbing.
There's a lot of stuff out there like that.
Yeah, no kidding. So I think there is that question, like, who's parenting your kids?
Yeah.
Like, when you're not parenting them and social media is like that, it's influencing their thoughts, and teaching them something. What are you modeling as a parent, I think, is hard too. Like you were mentioning earlier, like you and Robbie noticing like, hey, we're just going to our phones. Something I try and be, I'm not perfect for sure. Brittany and I will like try and be very conscious of, like, if we're telling our kids not to use social media, well, then why are we constantly consuming it, So I think you have to be aware of that. And then fighting against that peer pressure to just give in. Well, all of my kids' friends have it, and everybody else is using it. So, I don't want them to feel left out or not have that. I think it's hard as a parent to have that.
Very hard. But I also think that's where, like, we were called to be parents and we're trying to raise our kids in godly homes. And, like, how does that look for our kids? And, like, I just even think about if I was exposed to some of these things at 10, 11, 12, like, I didn't even know what social media was until I was in high school. And even then my brain was still developing. Mm-hmm. And so I just think there's just so much out there. And like you said, who's parenting your kids? Mm-hmm. And I think I always want to be the one to have these conversations with my kids first. Yeah. Like, I don't want them being like, oh, I saw this on social media. What does this mean? Like, I want to be the one to teach those things to my kids rather than them learning from an influence that is not me.
Yeah.
Or someone that I trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Seth, same kind of question as a student pastor. What would your advice or vision for students and their families be when it comes to social media?
Well, I definitely think parents shouldn't be afraid to take a very active interest in what's on their kids' phones, what's on the social media. I would lean. I know you kind of alluded to it. I don't agree with really a middle schooler having that social media. I think 100%. It's too young, and it's teaching them too many bad habits too early on. And then even in high school, I think that the parents should be very hands-on and understanding and knowing what's coming in, what's going out. Making sure these students have the ability to still create those social interactions in person and not losing that by just being glued to your phone and what people are saying or what you're saying to other people. And so the parents, I think you have to remain in there. And as a student, as an older kid, you have to be seeking out in your faith first and walking with the Lord and learning how to set up guardrails for yourself, because it's not going to be long as a sophomore, junior, senior that you're going to be in the world and all of a sudden mom and dad aren't going to be there every single day. And so helping parents coming alongside your kids, helping them create those guardrails while in the safety of your home right now, so that when they go out into the world here in just a couple of years, those guardrails are there. I know that's what my parents did with me. I didn't have social media growing up, and those guardrails when I went off to college were there, and I didn't draw into it as much as some of my other friends that were just addicted to their phones, sitting there scrolling every moment of every day in the dorm room. And so I think parents, you have to be very intentional in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested, Zach, what year, because I have a 6th grader, a 5th grader, and a 3rd grader. So we are just on the balance of like my older 2 are like, when can we have phones to like call our friends? So right now they can every now and then use my phone to like FaceTime their friends, like giving them a little freedom, but it's all on my phone. I can see everything. But you have teenagers. So I'd love to hear what y'all have in place.
Yeah, it's tough. And we were definitely the minority, I would say, among our kids' friends. But we were okay with that, and we talked with them about that regularly. So our general rule was no phones before 13. They got phones when they turned. I have 4 teenagers in my house right now. They got phones when they turned 13, where they could text and receive calls. And a lot of that was because that's when they started to go places without us.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to be able to stay in touch with them, communicate, track their location, whatever. So we definitely are of the delaying use as long as possible, even from just a phone standpoint. I'm going to expose my teenagers here. They still don't have social media like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, any of those major platforms. They do have things that they've used for school groups or church groups like GroupMe, Slack, those kind of things. I don't know if that's considered social media. There is still online interaction taking place. But we've also definitely put in place, like we have full rights to our kids' phones. We don't check them constantly or even daily, I would say. But we have their passwords. We can get on and look and ask questions about whatever we find there. So from my standpoint, parents have the freedom to monitor. If you're living in my house and under the umbrella of my blessing as a parent, then you're under my authority as well.
100%.
And that's not a privacy issue, but also I think society tells us like, oh, we're right, entitled to our privacy. Well, I might have conversation, disagreement about that with my kids. I'm not trying to invade their privacy, but their hearts aren't ready. It's hard enough as adults, but they're not ready to fight those battles and to guide themselves on their own. And then the last thing I would say is like, we really try to utilize downtime. So luckily, if you're an iPhone user, Apple user, the screen time options that those phones have in place are pretty good if you learn how to use them, and it takes a while to learn how to use them. We've tried outside softwares. We found that screen time is the best. But to utilize phone-free time. So at this time, you gain access to these applications on your phone, and then it goes away at this certain time. Yeah. So there's not the freedom to be on it all day or even late at night in your room. Oh, no phones in the rooms either, by the way.
Yes, that's a big one.
So there's phone-free time, not only on a daily basis, but then as a family. So we know, like, at the dinner table, you're not going to have your phone at the table, and this is beyond social media. This is all use, but it plays into that. So back to what you were saying, Seth, to make sure that they're still able to engage with people on a personal level. As a family, there's going to be times when we're sitting around talking or having that interaction without phones being a distraction, and we know that. So I want to make sure that they're able to do that and not just get lost. And there's still some times when I come in and I see all my kids sitting around on their phone. It's in the middle of the day, and I don't like it, but I can't really say like, hey, you can't be texting or whatever right now.
Yeah, you
like,
put
I
the
don't
parameters in.
Yeah,
and so
we
have
the guardrails, and I just have to be okay with that. But I'm with you guys is delaying and limiting that. And then when it's age appropriate, and it might be different from every child, but giving those little steps of freedom to earn responsibility and to show that with the guidance of a parent, so that then when they're released on their own, that it's not a free-for-all because it's been complete isolation. Yeah. But it's also, we're not already down a road that we don't need to be on before we're ever on our own, So that's kind of been our approach.
Yeah. Our initial plan was our kids would not even talk about getting a phone until they were 14. Now, our kids are trying to stay home by themselves a little bit more. And like, I do have kids that play sports and are not with me. And so we've had the conversation of like, there's a safety piece there. Yeah. But we've literally looked up like the old classic flip phones that you can text and call on, or Gab phones. Is that what they are? We've actually, Robbie's looking into, because we actually have a house line connected that we pay for. We've talked about getting a house phone again so that there's a way for them to call. And so I do think there's good in giving kids freedoms to learn. And like, I want them to talk to their friends like that. They're in an age where that's what they're desiring. And I want to encourage that, but in a safe way. And so I think, like we've already said, like social media, maybe their senior year of high school, they can get it, so that we're there to help them learn how to use it before they go into college. But that's, we still got a few years. So I like hearing your perspective, because it gets hard when they become at the age where all their friends are doing it, and and as parents to have the power and the confidence in yourself to be like, I understand that everyone in your class is doing it, but we are not, and here's why. I think that's important.
Yeah, it's tough, and the frustrating thing was something I was thinking about when you're saying that. Like, we looked into all the Gab phones, all those different options. They're difficult to use. They're more expensive to use, because not only do you have to pay for the phone, you have to pay for additional service. And then you get into a place where, depending on what activities and things your kids are in, like, they're expected, or sometimes even loosely required, to have other communication platforms like GroupMe or something like that. I remember our child that first got a job, that was one of the primary ways that they encouraged them to communicate, was through a private Facebook group. But he didn't have Facebook, and I was like, sorry, you're going to have to find a different way to communicate. Like, this can't be a requirement for this job as a teenager. Like, there has to be a different way. And so we fought that for a little while until we finally kind of found the solution to that. But those things are frustrating when you're trying to take that stance in our society that doesn't understand why you'd have those parameters in place. So I just want to mention, yesterday Robbie used James chapter 1 kind of as a text for this, and he was really speaking to the conflict and miscommunication that comes through social media a lot of times. But at the end of that chapter, James says, therefore, ridding yourselves of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, humbly receive the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Because if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like someone looking at his own face in a mirror. But if he looks at himself, goes away and immediately forgets what kind of person he was. So when we think about this, like, how does that text to you speak to our approach, or even your personal warning signs or caution when it comes to social media?
Well, for me, I'll just tell you guys, I don't actually have social media anymore at all, and by no means is my experience everyone's experience. But hopefully, maybe you're struggling with on the fence of if I should have it or not have it. Maybe you go my route and don't have it. I don't know. But as I was years and years ago, early in ministry, towards the end of college or just out of college, I was finding it more and more difficult for me while in the social media, like being on those social media apps, to relate to people that were different than me. And I felt and I saw how social media was pushing me further and further into my little bubble, my little clique, my little camp. And so I wasn't able to be a doer of the word and go out and be active in my faith, or as active as I could be, because I had been kind of chained to this set of ideals that, and obviously social media is not the only reason. There's other factors as well. But I found that it had been kind of pushing me further and further down this rabbit hole. And so I just decided, I was like, you know what? I tried deleting the apps, and then I would inevitably come back to them. I tried all these different things. I was like, you know what, Lord, we're just going to get rid of this stuff altogether. And so I got rid of it all. And let me tell you, it is peaceful. It is super peaceful. I don't have to worry. If someone needs me, they can text me or call me. They got my phone number. I don't really have to worry about keeping up with anything or anyone. And I can also, more importantly, meet people where they're at, especially for me now, as I'm in a new place, or a newer place in Florida, which is much different from where I grew up in Tennessee. And so I encounter people that are a lot different than me. And I don't have those same chains that were pulling me, where maybe I go into that conversation, oh, well, you have this set of beliefs, or that you're kind of weird in this way. I just see them as a broken, fallen sinner, just like I'm a broken, fallen sinner, also creating God's image. And it just helps me not to have those preconceived notions, those hindrances, those blinders on as I go into these interactions and conversations. And it's really peaceful.
Is it peaceful, Seth?
It's very peaceful.
Did you have any thoughts, Savannah?
No, I mean, I think Seth said it well. I think when it comes to this verse, like, be doers of the word, not hearers only. Like, I think that speaks to me of, like, I think it's so easy to hide behind social media. And I think we are called to be with people. And obviously there's a moral filth and evil that it talks about, but I also think there's a piece of being a doer, of interacting with people and having those relationships and communication outside of just like, I'm going to hide behind social media. And so I feel like I had a different interpretation of that, but that's what really spoke to me. Because I think that verse talks about like being quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. It is really easy to just be fast to anger and fast to speak when you have a screen in front of you. And I know a lot of people that, not personally, but just that I've seen, that are quick to say comments to people that they may not say to them in real life and in person. And so I think there's some danger there, that I just think relationships and connectivity is important. And that is a huge, huge downside to social media that I think really impacts us today.
Yeah. I think that I was kind of thinking about the being doers of the word and not hearers only too. I think social media tends to feed our consumer mentality, which we fight against anyways. And because we can take in the content, we can sit there passively, read whatever we want, take in other people's comments, all the information, the videos, whatever. And then, we just become consumers of a lot of information. And so when you take that, it's easy to become a consumer, even if it's good information, even if you're listening to sermons or podcasts all day that are encouraging, or you're only reading scripture verses on social media or whatever. Like, there comes a time when we have to live that out. And if we're consumed with the input or on social media, then it's only going to hinder, in reality, our ability to put that out, because, like you said, like, we're isolating ourselves, we're distracted from the people around us, we're not paying attention to what's happening in real life and all those things. And so I think, just as a guideline for all of us in life in general, we talk about this in the church sometimes. Don't just come to church and be a consumer, right? Like, be a producer, like, be active participant. And so in life as well, don't just hide behind the social media screen. Don't just hide behind your profile or identity there and the information you're taking in, but get into the world and be interactive and be real and present and authentic there, rather than just letting that exist in a digital presence. So that's kind of what I thought of for that. So a lot of good stuff. I think this is a good place for us to stop. And while we've wrapped up our Kingdom Thinking teaching series on Sunday morning, we're going to carry these discussions over into a few more episodes, 3 or 4 more episodes of this podcast, where we'll deal with more issues that we feel like would be good to cover, that are practical, everyday things that we encounter. And so some of those are going to be I'm not going to tell you what they are now, but they're going to be fun topics for us to discuss. So I encourage you to come back and listen to those. We hope you keep tuning in. And if you use social media, maybe even share the podcast there. This would be a good use.
Good tie-in.
You like that? You like that?
That's a positive use of it.
It might be helpful to someone else to hear the discussion. Maybe share your thoughts with us or questions. If you have those, you can send us a text link that's in the episode description. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a good question, maybe we'll answer it on a future episode. I don't know. But we'd love to hear from you on that. So if you have the opportunity, head over to City Awakening Church, our website, cityawakeningchurch.com. You can find more information about who we are as a church, or even some of these sermons that we've been preaching that speak to these topics that we've discussed in the podcast. So thanks for joining us, and we'll hope to see you next time.